I woke up this morning and realized I haven't uploaded a video in the past 8 months. Anyways, this is going to be judged across all classes at level and with multiple different builds and archetypes despite the footage you will be seeing. That being said, Archer and Assassin both factor less into the ranking because Archer is stupid, and Assassin has Vanish, which tends to clown on boss design once you get into the mid game and beyond. Pretty much any consumable outside of those that are purely walk speed boosts are also not considered much, if at all. AKA, this is judged mostly off the term no pot, except I'm being sponsored by Ava. All that aside, let's begin. Number 13, Tribal Sanctuary. Nobody should be surprised here. This is the most bare bones altar in the game, with the only real threat being the healers. Kill them as soon as possible and the boss becomes less of a hassle and remains a punching bag. Its only damaging spell is multi-hit, which is the easiest ability to avoid in the game by just standing away from it or jumping over it. The boss can only set up this multi-hit with a single predictable charge. Fun fact, they more or less nerfed this altar because the boss doesn't have heavy charge anymore and instead just has a normal charge stack to fly around the arena a bit. It's a tutorial boss altar and it serves that purpose well, but aside from that, it's nothing to worry about. Number 12, Altar of Sanctification. Repeating the same joke as last time, the faster Matryoshka idol, still don't know how to say it, is still easy. He got a shadow health buff sometime around 1.20.1, because he originally had the same amount of health on release of 1.20, but now he has more. I was going to cry tears of joy when I thought the boss was going to be good. Too bad it still has this stupid amount of health regeneration because it's just the gimmick. You either kill it before you can do anything or you have a build so tanky it takes 30 minutes to kill the stupid thing. To be fair, this can apply to any boss, it's just that those are the only two options here because of that health regen. The only way I've managed to make this boss hard, or fun for that matter, is with Earth, Thunder, Air, because you have to be careful with your mana to burst down the boss as fast as possible. Oh, I forgot to mention that the boss has Thunder, Water, and Air weakness the majority of the time. So yeah, have fun nuking the boss, I guess, with most of the meta level 70 weapons. He also doesn't have CCI except in his last two phases, and for those who don't know, CCI is crowd control immunity. Easy boss gets easier, I guess. Number 11, Aerie of the Recluse. Unfortunately for the two lovebirds over here, I've learned of the ancient video game technique known as cheese. Urder's aggro range while in his egg is non-existent, and thus you can just be slightly away from him and he won't self-destruct. Position him away from the center of the arena the first time he appears and you remove the threat from the fight entirely. Sometimes you don't even need to do this on purpose, it just kind of happens. You'll be backing up away from Adamastor anyway to avoid being blasted while dealing with Urder, so yeah. Adamastor herself lobs meteors at you the whole fight, which is still one of the easiest attacks to dodge in the game by just backing up. Or she flies into the ceiling every once in a while before coming back down to heal. She's just a damage dummy, if I'm going to be brutally honest about it. Even if you don't cheese Urder, it's not like he really does anything other than prolong the fight a bit. He does spam pull, but his damage is low as long as you aren't going AFK every time he does it. Plus, the chances of Adamastor actually hitting you while you deal with him are next to none because he's going to be pulling you out of the way of the projectiles most of the time. Could maybe move it up 1 or 2 spots, but the cheese is so easy to do even on accident that I kind of forget about his existence after the first time he appears. Fun fact, Achilles is unironically a hard counter to this boss fight. Just wanted to point that out because it is one of the most cursed things I've ever said, other than Galloping Spurs being a hard counter to Psychomancer. Number 10, Arena of the Legends. Minions are mostly irrelevant other than stealing procs, I guess. But the boss relies mostly on elemental defenses as its quote-unquote difficulty. The first 4 phases sit around spamming projectiles at you, but they might take 5 years to kill as you get completely walled by its elemental defense for that phase. It's not relevant for me anymore because I'm an average visceral set enjoyer. but if you're spell spam at all, it will prove to be an issue. It also has slowness, which is a pain, but I mean you stand slightly away from him anyways when he goes to use a spell, since his other two spells are either teleport or meteor. Last phase teleports much more often in comparison to the others and doesn't rely on said elemental walling because it has minor elemental defenses to everything except air. You want to be as aggressive as possible in this boss because it speeds up the longer it's alive. Eventually it'll just start zipping around even faster than the rampant overseer, aka Bill. This really only applies to the last phase though because it speeds up much faster in comparison to the other phases. The last phase is the only one I would say is mechanically difficult and not just a damage sponge. Number 9, Orange Wybel, except I'll probably still keep calling it Wybel. Yeah, I too remember when I had this as my number 1 boss, that was dumb. Now that Wybel's cores don't have that fair and balanced mechanic of pulling you into them, it removed a lot of the RNG factor from Wybel's fight that made it as hard as it was to begin with. Still hits like a tactical nuke with his meteors and charge stacking, but these are now predictable and feasible to dodge instead of just getting pulled into a one-shot out of nowhere. You pick a segment free from the cores to fight in and then strafe around the plates. Alternatively, you hit every plate known to mankind to proc your mana and lifesteal. You still have the occasional time where you'll get pushed into a core or get stuck on a slab, but yeah. Still requires good arena awareness and strafing to not get nuked, but a lot more fair and fun now that the pool spell is gone. Number 8, Challenge of the Blades. Boss's gimmick is to split over and over and over again after each time you kill it, getting higher health, damage, and spell casting speed with each split. So it'll start out simple, but by the time you get to the 3rd or 4th splits, there will be so many of them that it will seem overwhelming. However, the boss only has teleport, vanish, and multi-hit, and has that weird AI where it moves briefly before just standing still. So, as long as you're constantly moving around the arena, it's pretty easy to keep them all in one general location and not get multi-hit. I really only get hit by the occasional blade reminding me of my Dark Souls 1 PvP PTSD as he casually strolls up behind me and backstabs me. On the off chance that they do manage to gang up on you, it will be more or less instant death. As long as you don't push yourself into a corner like an idiot, such as myself though, this isn't much of an issue. Along with all of this, Mana Steal and Life Steal absolutely destroy this boss because you more or less will get guaranteed procs for every single melee, even at super fast. Likewise, this boss could shoot up a few spots if you had negative mana or Life Steal. Trust me, my Rumble Electro Charge Greaves build, it was a bad idea, to say the least. It still wouldn't be too difficult though, as long as you're keeping a good portion of them in front of you and kiting them all around. I still get my Big Macs from Burger King while doing this boss, by the way. Number 7, Plague Laboratory. I'm going to be blunt, this is by far the stupidest addition of CCI I've ever seen, other than slapping it on random non-boss mobs for seemingly no reason. I don't even think CCI is the spawn of the devil itself or whatever, like most people seem to think. Though I do agree not having CCI being split is dumb. But giving the minions in this fight CCI is so baffling to me that I went into an existential crisis when I realized it. I cannot find a genuine reason for them having CCI other than screwing melee builds over. Say goodbye to all that control you had over the minions in the fight other than kiting them now that they all crowd around Plague Doctor. Like deep down in my heart somewhere I want to believe this is a mistake because spoilers, Virus Doctor in Legendary Island does not have CCI on his minions. So why? Oh right, this was a ranking video on difficulty, my bad. Plague Doctor himself still is fair because all his attacks are telegraphed with a non-lethal spell in advance. These are pull into explode, charge into explode, or push into Aerostorm. React accordingly, but sometimes you'll see him do a spell and not do anything. This means you're out of range for push or pull, so just stay away from him because that's how you avoid both of those combos anyway. He also has his ultimate combo, which is charging and exploding just more. I could tell you the mechanics of these minions if I had even a shred of respect for them now, but I don't. Number 6, Rotten Passage. We're now entering the next 3 bosses where certain classes or archetypes will wipe them off the face of the planet, but will be mechanically challenging otherwise. Shamans and archers do not need to know about the mechanics in this fight, because they just right left left or left right right and all the minions are gone suddenly. They also easily strafe the boss either with totem blocking projectiles or sitting 50 feet away from them. Otherwise, it's a delicate balancing act of keeping some but not too many of the minions alive while whittling down Heros's HP, along with kiting the minions while you do so. The reason you keep some of the minions alive is because Heros has a heal bot AI, which means he will chase after his own minions. Since you tend to not have enough walk speed to strafe Heros on your own, his accuracy being significantly decreased when chasing after minions or just shooting his own soldiers helps tremendously. However, you do want to kill a significant amount of them, as Heros can pull you into a horde of them whenever he so pleases. The thunder and air minions are quite manageable and they're just fast or run away when hit, but the water minions have the detrimental slowness debuff. There will also be archers around the outskirts of the arena, and you should kill them as well so they don't build up damage over time. More importantly, Heros will not move if he makes it over to an archer, which is terrifying since his accuracy becomes that much better. Along with this, Heros will heal himself, occasionally explode, or chuck a meteor out, so the fight becomes quite methodical in these cases. The only enemy that deals super heavy damage though is Heros. So I still wouldn't put this much higher even if we take Archer and Shaman out of the equation. Number 5, Sunrise Canyon. Ironically, ranged playstyles are the best counter to Luke, despite him being the one with the gun. Quite easy to just circle strafe around them at a distance with Archer, and to a lesser extent, Mage and Spell Shaman. A lot of opinions are going to come from archers doing this boss because everyone and their mother owns a Deadeye. That being said, Luke is still terrifying, especially for melee. His attacks 1 or 2 shot you. Even for a warrior with decent defense investment, all it takes is a few hits to kill you in an instant. This is balanced by Luke not moving a whole lot outside of his reverse knockback or charge combo, which the charge combo is usually the setup for the Arrow Storm anyways, so you should be moving as much as you can when he pulls that out. Second phase switches to Rapid Burst, so there is a true cooldown when you can go in for a couple or more hits and then get out depending on your attack speed. Patience is a virtue here, and there's no need to rush unless you have a low walk speed build for phase 1. With bad walk speed, Luke's first phase becomes arguably the hardest boss in the entire game, because you will not be able to strafe his normal arrows reliably unless doing so at a distance. The opportunity to attack becomes much more limited. This mostly happens if you end up deciding to use a heavy melee-esque build, as you can see from me using Largo in this footage, although it's not the best showcase since Totem can block projectiles. There also is the unfortunate BS factor of some of Luke's arrows straight up being invisible, which is always a fun time, but yeah. Luke is overall a fair and incredibly punishing boss for close range builds, but moderately difficult at most outside of that since he's so easy to strafe at a distance. Number 4, Panic at the Disco. Gimmick here is that you have a status debuff that removes 99% of your current HP every 5 seconds. Effectively, you will be playing at one-shot range the whole fight, except there are many ways to counter this. Pretty much any fire and air combo makes this boss significantly easier, along with Shaman and Mage having a sizable advantage too. This is obviously because these both tend to be able to heal back HP relatively quickly, and the boss itself does little to no damage, so you are much safer with these effective HP increases. Of course, you're not guaranteed safety because you might not heal back in time if Zealot were to combo you, especially with his wave attack, but it is much safer regardless. Assuming these factors aren't present, then it's still pretty fair, not overly difficult till the final stretch of health. The 4 main combos are the 3 teleports and the teleport explode combo, which you avoid by standing close to Zealot so the TP overshoots you, the push spam and the wave spam combo, the push spam into explode spam combo, And lastly, the teleport and push into wave spam combo. I know that all seemed really redundant, but trust me, they're 4 different things. However, I suck at dodging the ultimate combo, which to be honest is the main reason he's even higher than Luke or Heros to begin with. He spams weakness to indicate it happening, which you can't really tell it is weakness unless you get hit by it, so there you go, before initiating a combo that puts these other combos into one giant string of attacks. It'll start with the TPs into the explosions before the TPs into waves. You generally avoid these 2 parts of the combo the same way as their respective combos, but my brain shifts into maximum overdrive and I forget how the ultimate works, and well, I panic. Also, it has these purple circles around the arena that temporarily restrict your movement, along with this clone that zips through the arena on a straight path and blinding you if it hits you. I don't worry too much about either until around the 300,000 HP threshold, where the clone comes out more or less non-stop and forces me into the purple circles. Fun fight, but only the ult combo really kills me outside of lag. Because yeah, lagging out killed me a solid 3/4 of the time while experimenting with this boss. I love you too, lag. You're just a feature. Number 3, Bovine Barn. The Durham Protector is quite simple, as he only has linear mob AI, which is the AI where he charges forward, passes by, then turns around, and the easily strafed charges, unless you have poison and accidentally interrupt him again for the 50th time. Please help me. Occasionally, he throws in a push before them as well. He also has 4 scarecrows scattered across the arena to pepper you with projectiles, and they can heal the boss too. On first glance, this seems quite easy. That is until you realize that doing this at level means you do not even have your 3rd spell yet. The scarecrows have about 400 health and thus will take a while to kill. The boss will 1 to 3 shot you, and defense is not going to save you because you can't stack a lot of it at this point in the game. And truly spell spamming and cycling is out the window when you don't have the proper mana or intel to pull it off, instead using it as burst damage. You either have to defeat all the scarecrows and blow your mana, resulting in the protector possibly exploiting your walk speed penalty, or you can pick a corner to camp in and dodge the protector in close quarters. The scarecrows can also respawn to distract you further from the protector, building up this chip damage more and more. Lack of options is why this boss is difficult, because it does not depend on your build. Sure, it's still a factor, but this boss is much more of one that judges how skillful you are at a fundamental level. Naturally, some classes are better than others, specifically Archer still being by far the best due to burst DPS at a distance, and Mage being the worst because heal does jack in the fight and you only have melee with teleport. Funnily enough, if you even go 1 level higher than the recommended level, this fight will become infinitely easier and nowhere near the number 3 spot because of your 3rd spell being a lock as another burst option. Number 2, Prison of Souls. This is the true test of how skillful you really are when everything is put together, because the boss varies heavily depending on you recognizing the strengths and weaknesses of your own build and class. Starts off with 2 different bosses, the beast having moderate burst fire, teleports, and meteor, while the enslaved has projectiles but a heal bot AI and pool. After defeating them, they will transition into their second phases, which are the unfettered and unbound respectively. Both of them have CCI in this phase as opposed to the first. The Unfettered moves at a moderate speed with a single teleporting meteor barrage, while the Unbound zips around the arena with linear mob AI while also vanishing, pooling less often than the first phase and flying around with charge acting as a disruptor as well. Who you focus and how you go about dealing with both of these threats combined depends on the 2 criteria I'd stated earlier. If you have the knockback spam to do it, it might be optimal to constantly push the enslaved away while you deal with the beast. Sometimes it may be better to try and transition both of them to the second phase as quickly as possible, because you don't want to deal with the projectiles hit stunning you in the first phase. Maybe you'll want to keep the beast alive since you can easily heal back the chip damage from it while you remove the Unbound from the equation, since you wouldn't be able to juggle both of their aggro at once. It all depends on what you're using and understanding how that complements the boss. An error in finding who to target and why to target them could mean you get overwhelmed by the chip damage from the burst fire, get hit by a meteor that does almost all your health, or it could mean you simply can't split your attention between these bosses. And it could just mean a multitude of other things too. Your options are still limited, albeit to a lesser extent, since this is still the mid-game. You won't be able to just dump 100 points into defense or something silly like that and expect to tank everything. Nor will you be able to just slap on legendaries and obliterate the boss because of the above. This is not mentioning that the boss also has a combined HP to rival the gods for its level, which is just icing on the cake. The exception is Deadeye. And if you use Deadeye as a basis for judging difficulty, I will hurt you. Insanely replayable and tough fight to try and figure out the best approach for you and how you go about doing it, and what I regard as the most difficult fight in the game. To be honest, I didn't really give this altar the credit that it's due, but I didn't want to make this video super long or anything. Or, I wish I could regard it as the hardest fight in the game. Because number 1, Geyser Pits. It simply has no right to be here. Fighting this boss is the same feeling as the catheter I had being put in me and taken out while I was awake after my surgery. In case you don't know what that feels like, good, because that means you haven't fought this boss yet. Ever wondered what pre-nerf Wybel Disintegrator cores felt like? This is them, except now they have the audacity to move. Round and round the Explodobots go. When they'll one-shot you, nobody knows. You are at the complete mercy of RNG because of the poor mechs actively deciding boundaries don't exist. You know what I do every time I fight this boss now? Pump SP into defense out the wazoo. It's the only way I can guarantee I'm not going to get randomly one-shot by one of these twats when they pop out the ground. You know, it would be pretty cool if you stayed where you were supposed to belong. Actually, it would be better if you went so far underground you crushed under severe pressure instead. Bring a thunder weapon to shred the boss as fast as possible. It doesn't deserve the respect of a fair fight. Fireworks too, since its third phase has fire weakness. You can't do anything about the self-destruct phase, so have fun running around, hoping you don't get one shot, I guess. Boss itself has push and pull to just add even more to the RNG to show you that this is a boss that wastes your time. If you told me to give at least one compliment to the boss, it would be that it's not the worst boss I've ever fought, which is hardly anything to be proud of. Yeah, it looks easy based on the footage I'm using, because it was. Thanos said it's so stupidly tanky you could more or less face tank all of LI and still complete it in a relatively efficient manner. Every single boss in this funny block game is easy and everything comes down to build. I could say the same for every single game I've played with a build system, to greater or lesser extents. There's nothing inherently wrong with this. If anything, it adds an amazing replayability factor to a game. It's just how it is. This boss reminds me that I could tell you the easiest route of anything, and that any boss mechanics whatsoever are irrelevant at the end of the day, when you can just clown on it instead. I know it's a bug, I don't care, it's an awful boss. So there you go, guess we can all agree that this was pointless. But I don't care, because it's fun to talk about anyways. Comments whether you agree or disagree are of course welcome, and I'll see you all sometime in the next 20 years. Probably.